to Dialogue Out Loud interviews. My name is Amanda Beardsley, and I'm the art editor of Dialogue, a Journal of Mormon Thought. Today, I am speaking with Paola Bidinelli, an artist whose work is featured in our fall 2025 issue. Paola Bidinelli was born in Italy in the ancient town of Teate degli Abruzzi, a wild and archaic territory known as Land of the Shepherds. Bidinelli uses the unique nature and dynamics of a multitude of raw materials, transforming them into a new imagery and identity. Materials speak aloud to me, she says. Despite their imperfections, they unleash forces beyond our control in an endless, fascinating fluctuation between ephemerality and resilience. So welcome, Paula, and thank you so much for being with me today. I am a fan of your work and really appreciate you. How are you doing?
Amanda. Thank you. Thank you for having me and for this invitation.
Excellent. Well, I'll just start in. I wanted to begin today with your cover piece for the issue called Letter from sorry, cut that part out. I'm going to start over on this question. Okay, it's that's the one that I struggle with. Gethsemane? Gethsemane. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So your cover piece, Letter from Gethsemane from 2021, is both intimate and layered, featuring various approaches and mediums. In it, we see heavy crackling paint, we see scratched and scribbled encaustic surfaces, we have organic ephemera, cursive handwriting, rough-hewn lines, and even a wax seal. And they all kind of work together to create this striking and evocative environment. Imperfect geometry seems to dominate the work as a wound-like cross scores the surface of mostly monochrome whites with red, dividing the canvas into 4 uneven quadrants. Across the scarlet gash of the top left quadrant, we see a stretch of relief of plant-like forms, which are plastered over with white and rust paint, while the outline of a box in the same color of red occupies the corner of the top right quadrant. The lower left quadrant contains a square of handwriting, the entirety of which almost mirrors the size and position of the other box in the top right of the composition. And so this interplay for me between positive and negative space, rough and smooth surface, dark and light, new and old, application and removal, and representation, iconography, and pure gestural abstraction all come together for me to kind of convey an array of complex emotions in a particular story. So I wanted to kind of start there with you, Paula, to see if you could tell us the story behind this work and what inspired you to create it.
Okay, so you did a great description. Really great. Okay, so well, a letter from Gethsemane was created as a reflection on one of the most extraordinary events ever occurred in the human history, you know. So the piece recalled the event happened in the Garden of Gethsemane. And so the idea of a letter, which is the title, Letter from Gethsemane, written from the sky, from the heaven, refers to a message sent to humanity. And the message I personally take from this event is that more than a distressing experience, as we all know, of course, and celebrate it as a suffering experience, to me, Gethsemane is the garden of creation. So it's the inner place where man goes to realize his defined goals. So the piece wants to open to the human condition. I mean, an individual enters the garden when turns away the attention from the world and the world around, and claims and embodied their desire to know their mission in life. And so in the example of Jesus Christ, in the very hour of prayer, he clearly defined his deep desire to be perfect in his mission. So, and of course, it's a painful process. It's a suffering process. Because it's a growing process. It's a refinement, right? So, but if the individual, in this case, as in the example of Jesus Christ, so endure the initial suffering, and then contemplate the peace and the joy of the accomplishment. So this individual as well began the spiritual act of creation until is become whole, and his consciousness guides him to reach perfection, so and become divine. So it's a piece that wants to go deeper in the human condition and to create an example, a parallel story between what Jesus probably wants to teach us in this way. So, and so this is the story. This piece belongs to a collection, which is a white lens collection. And of course, it's the dominant color is white, as you can see. And this white creates a sort of dissolution of gravity through the layers of colors and texture. And also this white contain markings that evoke a lexicon, like a classical or archaic lexicon, and also give the composition a sense of timelessness. So, and this timelessness is my final goals. So I've always been in love with the white color. I think it's a color that returns everything to a state of purity, to the state of innocence, which sometimes is lost during the journey of existence. And so to me, it's like a coming back to the source. Yeah. So I think this is what inspired me to create this piece.
That is such a fascinating way to kind of like think through this idea of creation. I know that like as an artist, that's probably a huge kind of like part of who you are, is like someone who creates things. But I think what's interesting, or what I'm hearing from what you're saying, is that there's this kind of juxtaposition of recycling, right? Like from what we have. So like we have this story of Christ and Gethsemane, Christ going into this like meditative area, right? And emerging in what you call kind of this perfect state. And that story in and of itself becomes kind of like the catalyst through which you're able to kind of create as an artist this entire composition. And I think what I love so much about this work is that, again, that kind of interplay between like old and new, like, or like taking from the past, or that indexicality, like you say, with the mark making, while also having something timeless that's eternal in a particular way. And so I think there were certain like scratchings on the work that were like parts of that indexicality that I saw when I was looking at it really closely. And I think there are listeners out there, I really hope that they can look at your work really closely, because there's so many beautiful kind of like treasures as I was like taking the time to stare at it. But like there were some, it felt like etching or scratching off like you would with claws. And then this kind of overlay of certain encaustic, right? So taking away and adding to like deposits. It's almost like a sedimentation
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. This is the part that really excite me when I work. So this kind of to put material, and then take away. So, and what remain is the essence of what I would like to see. And in this painting it's a painting, but it's a kind of a sculptural painting. It's a very materic. There are so much texture. So, and I like also to touch and feel. I have this a physical sensation of the materials that I use.
I think I could see that. Like even with the cross, it was like scored. It looked like almost with a finger.
Yeah,
Like
I did. I did. You're
that was
right.
your finger. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah,
I
so
did it.
that's so interesting. You scored with your finger this cross, and then you overlaid that with a red paint. And then I thought what was so interesting too was that relief, like the relief, like organic material that you have. Like they look like flowers. Is that supposed to
Yeah.
be kind of evocative of the garden?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Always in my painting, especially in this collection, White Lens, that there are sculptural painting. The natural element is always present. So I collect a lot of stuff, a lot of natural things from nature because I'm a lover, nature lover. So whatever I found, I can find. So I put on the canvas. And
Mm.
so in this case, yes, it's just a remind to the garden. So something that is alive, something that is a living place where humans can reach their perfection.
Mm. I really like that. And it brings me to kind of my next question. It gives me a really great transition, because I think that you have this kind of contemplative intimacy with your work. Just thinking about scoring your finger across a canvas instead of a paintbrush for me is so significant and so intimate with the materials. It's also intimate, like there's this contemplative intimacy that happens with memory and the act of making, like you said, the process. So to think that you're collecting these items, right? You're a collector, so you have this kind of archive of yourself, things that give you memories, objects that mark a moment in time somewhere that you then bring into your work. And so, and then also I think what's really interesting though is you've spoken about the ability to kind of on the other hand, spontaneously kind of conjure new work through inner visions. I think I read an interview where you talked about at night you will sometimes be at that moment before you're sleeping and you're thinking about like what you're going to create and get the ideas and the inspiration then.
Yeah.
And so in other words, your body and how you experience the world seems like a conduit or like this container of thought and experience that's really central to your career artist. And so I think how you think about the role of I guess the question is, how do you think about the role of the body, your own and others in your creative process?
Okay, so thank you for your question.
Yeah.
So it's quite new to me, this kind of question, because since I do abstract, and so when you do abstract, usually you don't do figurative. And so we put together figurative, body, figure, so things like that. So, and I'm not often asked that what role the physical body plays. in artistic creation. But anyway, I think the body to me, is a central instrument in my creative process, both as a physical conduit of energy and movement, but also as a container of memories and sensation, because body is mostly sensation to me. So, and I often think of creation as a kind of thoughts that finds a body. So it's an embodied thoughts. And when I work with abstract painting, I realize that even thoughts and emotion sometimes becomes abstract and intangible. So it's very difficult to explain in words. So the body filters them and tries to express them through physical touch, movement, experimentation, and presence. So the physicality of materials, also their weight, their texture. So all these things inspire me and interacts with my physical state. And so, and I think that from the relationship, the work was born. So take shape from here. And also, I'm also interested in the way the body preserves memory, particularly memories that cannot be fully expressed with words, or through language. And I believe that every gesture we make has an emotional weight that stimulate memories, which then take shape in my work, my process. So yeah, you talk about inner vision. I think this inner vision usually come at night. I don't know why. So I just close my eyes and I can see beautiful landscapes, images, colors. And usually I have to be very in tune with my body, and in solitude, probably. So it's a particular moment when I can break down the separation between my inner and outer selves. So there is a conjunction between the external world and the internal myself. So the body, I think the body is a great collaborator. It's an archive of information, is a storage of memories, is a listener, and it's also a communicator. So when I work, I try to be aware of its capacity to bring out what I have inside. So I trust my body and it helped me to bring out what I have inside. Yeah.
I love that. And there's also something like that I was thinking. The reason why I asked this question is because when I saw your work, it struck me as very bodily, actually. I thought that like that not just thinking of a finger scoring a canvas, but also thinking of like a wound. It seems very wound like. So when I like that red part, right? Like it almost seemed a little violent. And I think you spoke to that when you said that uh I think markings are indexical, right? So like we get the way we receive trauma can be painful, right? Or the way that we receive memories can be like a scoring on our own bodies. So that's one thing I thought about. And then the second thing I thought about in terms of the body is that when I saw your work, especially the white paintings, I thought of Robert Rauschenberg and John Cage. And I are you familiar with like their work? Yeah, Robert Rauschenberg does these white paintings that were all about not just like this whiteness on canvas that you encounter, right? But he called them, I think, airports for sound and particles. And that's what I thought when I encountered your work, was it was in a way this kind of like thing where if I saw it on a gallery wall, my shadow would be projected onto it. And with it being sculptural in a certain way, it takes up space, right? There's like this, what's called like phenomenology in art history. You can walk around it and you have to experience it in a particular way. And so I was thinking not just about like how you as a artist like experience the world and then exteriorize that, right? Like that interior exterior, but also how the viewer might encounter that as like a visceral experience, right? Just to see red like gash on a canvas is to kind of almost feel like this like violence to this itself, or to at least empathize with that
Yeah.
feeling, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's those were kind of the two things that were going through my mind. And what you just said about kind of your body being the central instrument in this physical conduit, and you say it so lovely, of movement and energy, but also an archive of memories and sensation, is really, really lovely. And I think that's a wonderful way to kind of think about how vision in general works with the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My next question thinks about like, I think embodiment is specifically kind of the spiritual components of your work, because with the title of this work, and with its feature in a publication that's deeply engaged with questions of Mormon identity, theology, culture, and institutional experience, there does seem to be a suggestion of a relationship between your creative process and your religious discourse. And so for you, what does it mean to make maybe Mormon art or art after Mormonism? And do these labels resonate with you as an artist?
So I think my work engages with Mormon studies, but in a broader conversation. So I mean, labels aren't my preferred way of describing things. So I lean more, sorry, toward an open-minded view of what spirituality can mean. So an open-minded view of spirituality is, I think, is a flexible thinking, is dynamic, is inclusive, and it is grounded in experience. So more than law or rule or we say dogma, but the living experiences is what makes humans able to grow. So it's from of course, from the Latter-day Saints view, we know humanity is a divine creation, right? So and my work echoes scriptural themes of embodiment, especially, and restoration, resurrection, which is always, I think, is always present in my work. So this idea of resurrection, of changing, of eternal progression, we can do. So, but by grounding spiritual experiences in the physical world, I think I want to invite reflection on the relationship between nature, faith, and also religious practice. So I think in this link, there is a connection between in what you say, Mormon identity, theology, and culture. So it's a link between what we are as human with our emotion, with our senses, with our physical world, what we are with our faith, which is an important part of our being. So faith is a dimension we all need, I think. It's something that opens up towards other dimension, other perspective. And then we have religious practice, which can be, in our case, is a Mormon, other case can be other practice or other religions. But these two, the nature, I think, the human nature and the faith, they are two elements that cannot be separated in my vision of life, of course.
That makes sense. And I can see it, especially with the painting that we featured, but also some of your other works that bring up kind of similar themes of physicality and sensation and experience. And so I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I do notice, this is something that is always a tricky question. So I appreciate you answering it. Because I think artists and I think most people in general don't want to be, painted in a corner and like have labels like that. And so I think your approach allows you to kind of draw from foundations of like the Mormon faith, including its stories, while also kind of exploring that spirituality. And I think the individual kind of relationship that a lot of Mormons might have with God, right? And revelation and personal revelation, right? There's that, I think Terrell Givens calls it like a paradox, right? That on the one hand, you have the institution, which has prophecies and things like that, but on the other you have this very personalized relationship with a higher entity, with divinity, with the spirit. So it sounds like you kind of navigate that in a really, really fascinating way. Yeah, and I think like on that note too, other interviews you talk about spirituality and being a holistic and energy therapist, and I'm curious, how that spirituality and maybe those two really interesting heritages, one of like a Mormon kind of westernized religion, and maybe the meditation on the other hand, and some of those kind of grounding practices seen a lot in Eastern religions. How do you see that kind of playing a role in your art?
Yeah, so as I said, so my art engaged spirituality through the use of natural materials, which I explore as elemental forces of nature, which we all are made of. So we are made of these elemental forces of nature, which are earth, stones, plants, wood, water, air, fire, whatever, which serve as, in my case, in my process, serve as medium. So I use them as a medium and also as a metaphor for a sacred connection. So to me, nature is a sacred entity. And so my work invites the viewer to consider how spiritual principles manifest themselves in the material world around us. So nature has this capacity to dialogue, to communicate with us spiritual truth, I think. And my art becomes a kind of a ritual of reconnection between spirit and body, between heaven and earth. And so a sort of visual and also tactile you can touch. Visual tactile theology. I like to say, to talk about theology like a faith that honors the sacredness of creation and the divine potential of all things. And you mentioned my holistic practice. So I'm an energy therapist. I work daily with clients, with people, and I view the body as a whole all the time. So when I have someone, I'm an holistic because I see the whole, and know the single parts of the body. So, and I find a deep connection between the touch, so the therapeutic touch I use to connect with my patients, and also the touch I apply to the canvas. So there is no difference for me. It's the same approach. I touch the body and I touch the canvas in the same way. So because both are act of creation and communion with the source. So I try to feel the energy that comes from the source and apply this energy through my hands, both to the body and both to the canvas. So, yeah, this is the process. And sometimes it's not easy just to explain how it works, because it's most of the time is a very instinctual, it's very emotional. So there are moments in which I don't feel anything. So and I'm a kind of artist that cannot stay in the studio as a routine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I never go in my studio regularly. Mm-hmm. Because I cannot. So I don't know what to do in my studio if I don't feel this connection and I don't feel this energy that comes to me. So yeah, it's a physical, it's always emotional process.
It sounds like it, and it moves me just to listen to you talk about it. So thank you for sharing that. I know that like sometimes when you have those spiritual kind of encounters, or those moments that are kind of ineffable, right? Like they're difficult to describe. But I think you did a beautiful job of doing so. So I appreciate that. And I love this idea of you being a medium, or the artist being a medium too. And I think there's a long lineage that can be kind of studied with that. I know we're short on time, and so I think I'll ask my last question here, but looking ahead, are there any new themes or techniques you're excited to explore, or any future exhibitions you'd like to plug? Where can folks find you?
Okay, so exploring new themes and techniques. Yeah, absolutely. Always. Always. I'm an experimental artist. So I'm driven by constant curiosity. I'm a walker. I walk in the nature. So, and in the nature, you find everything, I think. So you can find ideas, you can find inspiration. So, and I'm always marveling, always exploring. And I think that curiosity leads me to unexpected places of creation. So, and because of that, I truly can predict what I'll be creating in the future. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know yet. So about so for sure, I have a storage here in the studio of materials. Not always I use them, but sometimes when I feel inspired to use them, I take and use materials on my painting. Usually they are always present in my painting. And maybe just a leaf or a little flower, but it's present. So lately, I'm spending time in my studio working to a new collection, which is Elements, which explore the relationship between the elements, identity, and time. So in the last years, I restart using colors, a lot of colors too, and also texture, so richly textured surface, to create pieces that not only express emotion through colors, but also invite reflection. So even if in my last painting they are very colorful, but I think there is always a point of silence inside. I can see that. So I don't know. I hope also the viewer can see in between this emotion, colorful emotion, find a place of silence, of white. Since I use white also all the time, even in the very colorful painting. So, and so for me, abstraction becomes a language for what is deeply felt, but not always seen. So this collection, Elements, want to invite the viewer to experience the power of nature, the energy, so, and also offer a reconnection with its endless creativity, I think. So the cyclical, the ever-changing flow of time and constant evolution of identity. And so was your last question, where
where can we find you?
Yeah. So you asked me for a future exhibition, right? Okay. So I'm part of some artist groups and artistic community. So, and we have a regular exhibition, like group exhibition, solo exhibition. And I'm part of the SOA Art and Design District in Boston, which is a really vibrant community of local artists and galleries. I'm also a member of the New England Experimental Group in Massachusetts and other NAWA, National Association of Women Artists. So, and we do many exhibition. People can find me on social media. So some platforms, I have my website, which is the www.paolabidinelli.com. And also I have a Instagram page, so it's Paola Bidinelli Art. And yeah, I'm on Artsy too. And I'm a member of NAWA National. Yeah, so that's some platform.
Excellent. Well, thank you so very much for interviewing with us, for sharing a little bit about your approach and kind of like your process, and for giving us your time, most of all, and sharing your work with the world. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, Paula, and I look forward to seeing what else you end up creating and doing in the future. You've got a fan in me, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amanda. It was a great pleasure to talk with you. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Rebecca DeSchweinitz, and I'm thrilled to serve as a board member at the Dialogue Foundation and as one of the hosts of Dialogue Gospel Study. In each episode, which we record live the second and fourth Sunday of every month, we welcome esteemed speakers from a variety of backgrounds to share their insights and perspectives on the Come Follow Me lessons Our aim is to spark meaningful conversations about the scriptures, to connect them to our personal experiences and to our understandings and explorations of the gospel. To stay in the loop with our upcoming lessons and this opportunity to engage with Mormon thought, culture, and belief, be sure to visit dialoguejournal.com and sign up for our newsletter. By doing so, you'll receive updates and timely links to join our live stream lessons. Additionally, you can catch up on our past guests and episodes by subscribing to Dialogue Journal on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Dialogue Podcast Network.